Neil?
Thanks, Veronica. I'll wait for the slide to come up. But welcome, everyone. As you know, dual enrollment is a big part of our state effort for transitioning students. SB 554 is intentional to work with K-12 adult students and the community colleges. So we're really excited about that. And we're really excited about this webinar today. So if you want to advance the slides, Veronica. So just quickly, when we looked at the priorities for this year, we looked at the Department of Education's, the state superintendent, Tony Thurman's initiatives. We also looked at the vision for success and the vision goals. And from there, we aligned kind of what those big visions are to our program. Next slide, please. And the CDE superintendent's initiatives are closing the digital divide, promoting statewide literacy, reducing chronic absenteeism, closing the achievement gaps, and of course, employment, jobs for tomorrow. And then conversely, if we go over to the community college system, next slide, please. We look at the vision goals, which is to increase degrees, credentials, certificates, or skill sets for in-demand jobs, increase the number of students transitioning to use CCSU, decreasing the average time or number of units accumulated by the community college students as they go forward on their earning their associate's degree. And then there's just a few more. Next slide, please. And then increasing the percentage of CTE students who report being employed in field of study, reducing equity gaps among traditionally underrepresented student groups, and then finally reducing regional achievement gaps across all of the above measures through faster improvements among colleges located in the regions with lowest educational attainment of adults. So then we took these and aligned them with adult ed for some shared goals. So, you know, increasing credentials and high school diploma, high school equivalencies is a big thing in the adult ed world. Increasing transition or transfer to community college credit coursework, decreasing unit attainment, helping those students get to that 12-hour mark, increasing employment for CTE students, in fact, increasing employment for all CAPE students, and then reducing the regional gap in the 71 regional consortia. And is there one more slide on this, Veronica? Well, and then overall in all of those would be the equity. How do we reduce the equity gap in all our programs? And so from that, we've got these 7 state priorities: equity, leadership, learner transition, marketing, program development, curriculum, classroom, program evaluation, and technology and distance learning. Today, we're going to be focusing on learner transition. And if you haven't started your 3-year plan, one of the questions the legislature asks us for our 3-year plan is, what actions are you taking to increase the, I think it's to increase the transition of students to employment and post-secondary. So learner transition is a big part of that 3-year plan, big part of what the legislature is asking us to do. And so with that, I'll turn it back to Veronica so you guys can start the webinar today.
Thank you, Neil. And we will turn it over to Matt, who will get us started with their presentation on SB 554. So I'm going to stop sharing, Matt, and you can go ahead and share your slide deck.
Great. Thank you, Veronica. And thank you, Neil. I think a lot of what you laid out there for the vision for success and our adult ed goals will resonate with this presentation today. So the title of the presentation is Utilizing SB 554 to Enroll Non-Resident and Resident HSE and HSD Students in Credit College Courses, which of course is one of the goals that Neil just laid out, that transition to college credit coursework. Our presenters are Nora Harani Faraj, who's the assistant principal of Chafee Adult School, Todd Haig, who's the principal of Chafee Adult School, Laura Alvarado, who's the assistant director of Adult Ed Pathways at Chafee College, and myself, Matthew Morin, who's the director of intersegmental partnerships at Chafee College. The topics of our presentation will be broken out into 4 components. The first is why SB 554 and special admit. The second component will be dual enrollment process workflow, where you'll learn a little bit about how we apply SB 554 at Chafee College, the processes, and even the electronic forms that go into that work. And then transition counseling supports. So what kind of external student supports we create to facilitate the student enrollment through SB 554. And then the perspective from our adult school partner, where you'll hear what kind of supports and really the development of their program in conjunction with Chafee College that and their journey to kind of coordinate with the funky institutional infrastructure that colleges present to adult schools. So this kind of harkens back to a lot of the originating motivation behind the goals that Neil stated just a moment ago that are also connected to the vision for success. When we think about educational attainment in California, there really is a crisis of educational attainment, especially with adults who do not possess high school diplomas. So 17% or over 5 million adults in California possess less than a high school diploma, which is a larger percentage than the average percentage across all states in the United States. And that is especially this is especially a problem because California has the biggest population. So when you combine the largest population with also the largest percentage of adults who do not have high school diplomas, that really constitutes a crisis of educational attainment, not just for California, but for the United States. And when we put this into context within the perspective of how our CAPE programming functions, of that 5 million plus any students who could benefit from English language learning or short-term CTE or older adult programming or adults with disabilities, there's only a total of around 500,000 adult ed students who are enrolled in the California adult ed programs, at least that are picked up by the launch board, who have attained more than 12 hours in adult ed. And so this particular snapshot is of the 17-18 year, and of that 17-18 year student cohort, only 1.6% went on to complete 6+ college units. So if one of our Vision for Success goals is really to transition students into college credit and make that a priority for adult ed, we're a long way from that goal. And that's where dual enrollment kind of enters. And I'm sure many of us who are working in adult ed know that there's not going to be any silver bullet to college credit transition for adult ed students. We have a long way to go to climb that mountain. But there's a toolkit that we can use to help accelerate our ability to meet that challenge. And dual enrollment has been proven to be an excellent tool for facilitating transition for traditionally aged high school students. And because the research behind dual enrollment showing that high school students, traditionally aged high school students, are more likely to graduate from high school, enroll in college full-time, maintain higher GPAs in college, persist and complete baccalaureate degrees in 4 to 6 years, is so robust, especially for students who are low SES or first generation, which means that it can be a real equity gap closer. States across the country have invested and doubled down and made dual enrollment a major priority for their states. And California is one of them that have really put their money where their mouth is to support dual enrollment, but primarily, in fact, only for traditionally aged high school students. Adults without high school diplomas were sort of left out of the equation in the discussion. when it comes to the power of this tool, which is sad because the reality about the students who actually enroll in dual enrollment courses who benefit from this transition acceleration tool uh, is actually the opposite of shows it to be the opposite of an equity initiative. The demographic trends of dual enrollment students tend to be white, high socioeconomic status, non-first generation, high GPA in AP and IB programs, which means that the students who are in enrollment programs across the country are actually students who are already kind of set up for success in college transition, which forces kind of us to contemplate, well, what can we do to make sure that this tool is being used as an equity gap closer instead of an equity gap increaser? And I think that's where adult ed is such a useful community of practice, because we as adult ed leaders and practitioners and our students really stand to be the force that could make dual enrollment only be used for good instead of to accelerate achievement gaps that already exist. Because as you know, all of the students who we serve in adult education are students who are disproportionately impacted, who are on the side of the equity gap where they face more barriers than the categories that you see here. So dual enrollment for adult ASE students can really help not just benefit adult ed, but also benefit the entire cause of dual enrollment across the nation. And that's where SB 554 came in. So SB 554 basically expands the dual enrollment funding formula, as well as the streamlined enrollment processes that are available for high school students that eliminate financial aid, for example, from their process, and expands that legislation, which is called special admit, which is an enrollment status that exists in Title V as well as Title III and Title II, to adult ed programs as well, specifically to adults who are pursuing a high school diploma or a high school equivalency certificate. So the exact language is that SB 554 authorizes a student pursuing a high school diploma or a high school equivalency certificate to enroll as a special part-time student at a community college. And I'll talk a little bit now about what that designation of special part-time admit actually is. And specifically what the difference is between California Promise and special part-time admit. The reason why I juxtapose those two categories against each other is because throughout the process of walking out this legislation, we were frequently asked, well, why wouldn't colleges just enroll adult ed ASE students using the Cal Promise or the BOG waiver? Because California community colleges don't block students who have high school, who are pursuing a high school diploma from entry. And that is absolutely true. But I think what I'll show you here will help make the case for why the special admit designation that exists for traditionally aged high school students is especially beneficial for adult ASE students and can cut through a lot of the red tape that California Promise requires. And so the first dimension of special part-time admin is that students are limited to 11 units if they're concurrently enrolled in a high school and now in an adult ed program. That colleges also received enhanced apportionment. That's approximately 1/3 higher FTES for each FTE that a student enrolled through special part-time admin enrollment status. And this is significant, not just for colleges, but also for adult schools. So for the adult school practitioners, administrators in the room, I really want to encourage you not to look at that statement as something that doesn't pertain to you and only relates to colleges, because actually, if you find that your college is having a hard time connecting with you on SB 554, these are statements that can kind of help build the bridge, because they might not even know or understand that this SB 554 dual enrollment pathway will provide an extra funding revenue stream for them and help them with their enrollments. And so this can really help you get buy-in from your college partners. Colleges also can waive the fees and the tuition for non-resident students. And this is a really key component for special admit that's very different from California Promise. Of course, with Cal Promise, non-resident fees are not allowed to be waived unless they're SB 540, AB 540 students, and that there's a bar for that, of course. And so the ability to really not even check residency and to waive fees and tuition as if they were non-credit students. And I think that's like a good way to structure this in your minds if you're sort of wondering, well, what's the difference between this and a traditional credit enrollment? In some ways, what this does is it clears the deck of a lot of the credit regulations and restrictions and kind of puts it on an equal playing field with non-credit when it comes to its openness to non-resident students participating. And then you get extra bonus points for the student-centered funding formula when these students transition over into first-time college students. So the idea is not that ASE students remain in the special part-time admit space for that long. Ideally, just a year or less, that's a period of time when they are completing their adult secondary ed credential. And then they transition over to first-time college student. And let's say during that year, they completed a college English course that also counted for their high school diploma English, right? Because that college English course can be transcripted on their adult school as an English course. And then they transition over into the college and they've completed a college English course. That actually will count as part of their student-centered funding formula first year completion metric of completing college English within the first year. And as many of the college, and for colleges, that means if for every student that completes their English and math within the first year, that's an extra $1,000 for every single one of those students. So there's extra completion points that can be tacked on as kind of multiplying bonuses in addition to the enhanced apportionment. Also, students don't begin the clock on their Cal Promise until they transition into first-time college student. So the special part-time admin is kind of like a holding pen that doesn't enter into the Cal Promise clock that they would have if they're going to enroll full-time. And then this is my favorite part of the special part-time admit ed code is that it requires the authorization of a secondary ed provider, which means your adult school or your non-credit adult education program administrator / counselor / career tech, for example, whoever has been the designee, labeled as the designee, authorizes their student, their ASE student, to be able to enroll in the college this way, which kind of forces a relationship between the college and the adult ed providers, where colleges and adult ed providers can start to be really intentional about how they build those pipelines. And what I especially like about the authorization of the adult ed secondary ed provider is that it also clears financial aid out of the way. So if you think about a traditional enrollment in a college for a traditional college student, the college charges the student tuition and fees, and then the student is able to apply for financial aid in order to get those fees waived, whether or not they're going through Cal Promise or through FAFSA. And in this case, we kind of cut out that step for the students so that they don't even need to go through that financial aid process. And for many of us in adult ed, we know that can be a really interrogating experience for adult ed students. And so this kind of softens the blow by taking the financial aid office out of the equation for their college experience and instead replacing it just with that signature from the adult ed provider. And in case you get asked by your partner college, or if you're working in an adult ed office in a college, will show us that we can collect apportionment for non-resident FTES. Here is the Assembly Bill in 2016 that clarified that colleges can waive non-resident fees for special part-time admits and collect FTES apportionment on those enrollments. The reason why I bring this up is because it's a huge sticking point for many colleges. Many colleges, their admissions and records office and registrar's office are super skittish for good reason about waiving non-resident fees and also about collecting apportionment for it. And so while adult schools have enjoy a much more open door, open entry, open exit kind of approach that's very inviting to all students, no matter who they are and where they come from. Colleges, of course, exist in a different space where that isn't the case. So this is just one tool that you can use, this slide and this Assembly Bill, to help make your case in case you encounter any resistance on that question about collecting apportionment or even waiving fees for non-resident students. The other thing I want to add real quickly is that ability to benefit could be bundled with SB 554. If any of you are familiar, ability to benefit allows adults who are pursuing a high school diploma to receive Pell funding if they complete 6 units in a career pathway. Of course, AccuPlacer used to be one of the tools or hurdles, I would say, that was used for colleges in order to allow students to test to see whether or not they could access ATB funding. But that also is a very restrictive tool. And so it's a good thing that AB 705 has kind of wiped the slate clean in California community colleges of AccuPlacer largely, and replaced it with placement programs. But it has also sort of closed the door to a lot of ATB. But what a lot of colleges don't realize is that it's still eligible for adults who are pursuing a high school diploma to complete 6 units in what the Title IV regulations call a career pathway in order to receive Pell funding. And so that you can actually, in this case, braid SB 554 by waiving student tuition and fees. And then the students can get a little extra bump through Pell for cost of living if they participate in ability to benefit at your college. And that SB 554 dual enrollment can get them over that 6-unit hump without having to pay anything. So there's a nice little pathway there. So correcting common misconceptions about special part-time admit. So one is that high school transcripts from dual enrollment students are required by auditors. So this is something many colleges, their admissions and records or registrar's offices are nervous about, that if they don't have the transcripts of high school students, traditionally aged high school students, then they won't be allowed to enroll as a special part-time admit. This is not accurate. High school transcripts are not required, and therefore they are not also required for adult school students. So if you are partnering with a college that requires transcripts of its high school special part-time admit students, you can tell them, actually, you don't need to do that. And also, you definitely don't and shouldn't do it for adult ed students, because transcripts for adult school students and for adult ed program students is always a challenge. And then also GPA is not a requirement for admission. A lot of colleges have a GPA threshold for which they will create as like a wall for special part-time admit high school students. If they have an internal policy like that, know that that is not a statewide policy, and it would be in the best interest, considering the equity and goals, that they remove GPA as a requirement for entering as a special part-time admit student. So here's a nice diagram created actually by my partner, Laura Alvarado, and colleague. And so this shows how an SB 554 student would transition over into a first-time college student pathway. And so you start in the middle there with that big red circle that says SB 554, tuition and fees waived for all ASE students, pretty much no questions asked. And then they move into a variety of 3 different pathways. Maybe they're utilizing ability to benefit after they complete 6 units, and that's giving them some extra Pell funding as they transition into first-time college student. In that case, if they are Pell eligible, they would be residents, and they would be able to transition over into first-time college students and utilize FAFSA after that. But for our students who are non-AB 540 eligible, meaning maybe undocumented students who did not spend any time in the traditional K-12 system, and for whom, if anyone's familiar with SB 68, have not completed 3 years at 420 hours a year of time in an adult school, which is really not that's not a bar that any adult school student would be able to reach reasonably, then they end up being kind of out of luck. And that is why it's really important for all of us, I think, to be pursuing either legislation that reforms SB 68 or expands AB 540 so that as these SB 554 students who are not AB 540 eligible transition over into first-time college student, they don't hit a wall when they try to transition over. And then, of course, if a student is a resident or AB 540 eligible, then they can transition over into first-time college status as a full-time community college student using the California Promise grant, as well as Pell if they are Pell eligible and they have resident status. So I think that the barrier that I mentioned earlier about how non-AB 540 students cannot move over into first-time college students is part of a bigger challenge that SB 554 kind of picks at. And I said earlier that one of the great things about SB 554 is that it levels the playing field between non-credit and credit when it comes to access for students who are non-residents and residents alike. And I think what it highlights is that the Carnegie unit is kind of an oppressive regime. It's a tool that has been used to keep students out. It's been used to certify the privileged in their educational pathways. And largely because of all of the residency requirements attached to it, including the trail and the records that it leaves behind, needs to kind of be broken down if we ever really are going to achieve true equity. So SB 554 helps us kind of break through that credit barrier and puts us into a new sort of space where the credit is no longer as much of a domain of restriction for students who are pursuing an education if they're adults who don't possess high school diplomas or if they are adults who are non-residents. And with that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Laura Alvarado, who will talk a little bit about our partnership and the processes that allow us to enroll students in SB 554.
Thank you, Matt, and good afternoon, everyone. Matt, would you mind dropping in the link for the slides into the chat?
Yes, for sure. Thank you for reminding me.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start talking about the practitioner practices of this. So we've got a good grasp now of the policy, especially the why this is so important and why this benefits our adult schools and our adult students, and particularly our non-AB 540 students. As you see here, this is a village. It takes a whole village to make this work. Anywhere from our consortia director, all the way to the bookstore, to assistant principals and staff at the adult schools. What the takeaway from this is that it's a shared partnership. This is a shared program. It's not viewed just as a college program. The investment from this comes from multiple sources. Next slide, Matt. So at Chaffey College, the way we offer our courses to students is through a marketplace. So we offer, let's see, I think this semester, or excuse me, spring semester, we had over 30 classes available with multiple sections in each of the different courses. These courses are all online. Our program is it's a non-CCAP program. For each of these classes, we cap at 5. And then the remaining seats are dedicated to adult school dual enrollment as well as high school dual enrollment. So the reason we piggyback this is, our adult schools, they're smaller than our 18 to 20 some high schools in our district. It would be more difficult for us to fill complete courses and have a wide selection of courses. So with this marketplace style, we can really piggyback and expand the number of courses and the different types of courses to our adult school. The courses are selected, they're A through G to meet the high school or adult school requirements. We have many CTE-based courses, and there's definitely a guided pathways perspective to this, in the sense of making sure that we're offering intro classes and starting to identify the bundling of courses to ensure students, if they're interested in a particular area, it still falls within those guided pathway practices. In addition to this, on the adult school side, we're even looking at other ways to approach guided pathways. So one practice we're doing now with our counseling department is we have a work group that's starting to see if we can create a career or academic community-based career explorement classes. So for instance, at Chaffey College, for one of our meta majors or our academic career communities, which would be, let's say, health and wellness, we'll have a guidance 3, a college, a career exploration and life planning course dedicated to students who are particularly interested in a particular academic and career community. Next slide, Matt. So as Matt said earlier, we use a digital workflow. For this, we use FormStack. The flow of this FormStack is it goes to the student. The next step, it goes to the adult school designee, and it comes back to the college, which leads to batch enrollment. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a quick view of what our FormStack looks like, and then I'll talk a little more about it. So this is our electronic form. So this is what we use for enrollment. A student would still need to apply to the college using CCC Apply. Once they have their student ID number, they would use this particular form. This form is provided to all the adult schools, and our adult school counselor on the Chaffey College site has it as well. So as you see, it's a fairly simple form. Basic demographics, we ask to identify what adult school you attend. There's a drop down so you can see our different schools. We ask the student to choose their classes. So as Matt said earlier, the max a student can take as a special part-time admit is 3 units. We're aware that not all of our students understand the process of what's units, what's not. So we estimate approximately 3 classes for our students to give them a guideline. From there, we have the list of courses. A student can self-select a course. How many would they like? Let's say I'm going to take some gerontology and a communications course. That's it. I go on here. There's some basic understanding of our program. Does the student understand? Yes. And then they sign. This is when the student submits this, it goes directly to our adult school designee. One of the benefits of this here is, as I said before, the student selects their adult school. With FormStack, we can customize what classes are offered based on which adult school the students select. We have some adult schools, which you'll hear from in a little while, our Chaffey Adult School, that we offer additional business courses to that school for a cohort that they have. So I'm able to add those classes on, and they'll only be open access to students within that particular adult school. If at any time I need to expand that to other adult schools and those courses, I can in just a few steps. Matt, can you bring us back to the presentation? So with this digital workflow, something that we've realized is really important is the communication with the students. So the whole college process is probably new to these students. I think we all can admit that our processes can be a little bit cumbersome at best, particularly if you're first gen or you don't have anybody there to guide you through this process. So we work really hard at student communications. One of the benefits of FormStack is that as soon as a student submits that form, they receive an immediate message. Welcome to Chafee. This is what you've done. These are next steps. And this is who you can contact if you have any questions. Next slide. So this is an example, as I showed you before, of where the adult school designee needs to verify. The good piece about here is as soon as the student submits that form, the adult school designee is notified. So there's been many times that it's less than 2-3 minutes from the point of student submission to adult school designee, the adult school designee verification. This also meets that ed code requirement to have the college, to have the adult school supply that verification. Next slide, Matt. So back to student communications. We really want to let our students know what's happening in this process. It's brand new, it's a little scary, and communication is really the best way that we find to ease some of the fears of our students. So once the adult school approves that, they receive another notification, this time in their email. So with this, they're notified that they have the course, they're congratulated. So we can customize these. We also provide information here on next steps with tutorials, how to connect to our student portal, how to access the student portal if you've never logged in before, how to access Canvas, which leads them to moving into the online courses. And lastly here, Chafee has an Omnitrans Go Smart Bus Pass. So for $8, a student can, if they're enrolled in a class, they can get a bus pass that takes them all throughout anywhere that our Omnitrans, our local bus travels. So we allow students to know this here because if they'd like to enroll in that, they can at this point. Next slide. So let me share with you some of the benefits of using FormStack. It's user-friendly, both on the user side and on the building side. I myself am not a tech person on any level, yet I'm able to go in and build these forms. They provide analytics. So this is a snapshot here. On the lower right-hand corner, you see a list. And this is where we receive information about what adult school they came from, the student's Chafee ID number, their names. So it allows us to track those students. I know it might be hard to see, but there's different tabs. There are some for completed workflows or in progress workflows. Those in progress represent those that the adult school designee has not yet approved. Everything's timestamped, so we're able to look at this and say, wow, okay, Nora hasn't approved this in the last 3 hours, which is very unlike her because she's on top of this. So I might want to either resend it, or if I have to wait a day, I can just contact her and say, did you know this? Because we see that our adult school partners tend to approve these immediately. So it gives us an idea of where our student's at. Or if a student contacts us, we can tell them, hey, this is the status. On the upper left-hand corner, you see some charts. These analytics provide us with information on how many students have enrolled, how many students have enrolled in a particular course. We can see this in a line bar or in a pie chart. We have ways that we can manipulate these analytics. Another benefit to FormStack is that it does accelerate enrollment. As I said, from student to authorized designee and back to the college can be anywhere from 5 minutes to 5 days, but we really find that it's pretty quick. Lastly, actually 2 more points. As I said earlier, this forms allows us to use logic to customize the list of students. And this form is also 504 compliant. Excuse me, 508 compliant. Next slide, Matt. So let me share a little bit about our internal processes at Chafee. So anytime we do this, as you see with these form stacks and enrollment, we rely very heavily on our admissions and records team. And I know in previous presentations, Matt and I have addressed this. But this also applies to our IT department and how much we really rely on them and work with them to create these back-end processes. So when a student applies, and they use CCC Apply, they now have an admit status code, which is assigned to students who select adult school student eligible to enroll in college. So this is significant. When we came on the application back last December, it really legitimized and validated our adult schools enrolling into our colleges. And there's also a few other places within CCC Apply that our students are now recognized. I'll give you one area to this that we're actually trying to work on now is one downfall we see with this is we have adult school students who are not part of our dual enrollment program, who are enrolling into the college that are selecting this designation. So these are adult school students that maybe are moving into some non-credit ESL courses and are not eligible for SB 554. So this is something that Matt and I are now starting to work on with the CCC Tech, and Neil Kelly will be talking to you soon about this as well, to see how we can make this terminology much more specific to high school diploma and high school equivalent adult school diploma and adult school equivalent students. The next piece is that when students do select this status, an admit status code, which is assigned to the adult school student eligible to enroll in college enrollment, it triggers the fee removal in our billing tables. This is automatic. And this code is also linked to the MIS element. At this point, the student is blocked from self-registration, and they receive a message that says they need to petition in order to enroll. On the enrollment side, a student will complete the form stack and receive the approval, but they also usually have guidance from either the adult school or a college counselor. Once the student completes this enrollment and they are approved, we batch enroll the students through our A&R, and this overrides that petition block. The next step is the students are able to see the courses that they've enrolled in their portal. Next slide. So, as I said before, that admit status code that's assigned to the enrollment, it triggers the MIS element as well. So SB 554 has the code of 21,000 specific to our students, part-time special admit. So this is significant because if your school has an active high school dual enrollment program, traditionally, if we did not have this particular MIS element, our adult school student, special part-time admit students would be lumped in with that high school. So this code, this MIS code, now allows for a separation. So at Chafee College, we are now on our 3rd term of running SB 554, and we're excited to look on the dashboard when spring and then summer completes, so we can see the number of students be represented of the number of SB 554 adult school students that we have now enrolled. Next slide. So marketing. So we have all these processes in place. We were building this and COVID hit. So we've really had to learn to adjust. Fortunately, though, these adjustments that we made have really opened up the accessibility. We did find on the onset some of the digital literacy issues with our adult school students, but we also see that quickly changing. Our adult school students are adapting, such as the rest of the world has. So I'll give you an idea here. On the left-hand side, you'll see a list of the courses that we offer our adult school students. At the very bottom there, there's information on how students can contact us and what they need to do. This is provided to the adult schools. I have adult schools that have sent this out by text. They email it. If there's any type of in-person contact, they can disseminate it that way. On the right-hand side, again, it's just another example of how we have advertised this to our adult school students. And if I can show you, the flyer on the left has 4 classes. That's the first semester that we've offered this. The flyer on the left has, 20 some, maybe 30 classes. That's what we're at now. So in a matter of fall to spring, we were able to expand from these 4 classes on. On these, oh, that's okay. On these flyers, you'll see at the bottom right-hand corner in black, these flyers are hyperlinked to how to apply to the college, how to receive assistance with the application process, and how to access the actual dual enrollment form stack form. Now you can change that. And I'll share with you one other thing we do. You don't need to go back to the other slide, but the dates of the courses. Chaffey College is traditionally an 18-week semester. We offer our courses on a 14-week semester. So we do a late start. We give a month between the start time of the 18-week to our adult school courses. And this is a benefit. It's very difficult to be starting your college courses at the same time, maybe your kids are returning back to school. And maybe at the same time, your adult school classes are starting as well. So by delaying it a month, a few things happen. It allows our students, our adult school students, to somewhat adjust of returning back to school, whether it's for themselves or family members. It also gives us a month to go into the adult schools and do a little bit more marketing and recruitment and helping those students enroll. If you're enrolling in, like right now, we're enrolling for fall. It might be difficult for our students here in late April, early May to commit to courses that start in September. So that extra 4 weeks allows us that time to go back in and work with our students. We also focus on a little bit more than just getting students in classes. We want this to be a long-term goal, a long-term transition. So on the left, you'll see a flyer. It says, what's your plan? Here we start advertising about how to make an ed plan, how to meet with one of our dedicated adult school counselors who can work with you to build out your future. With our counseling staff, they've really gotten to know their students well. So some of our adult school students can go straight to the counselor. They know who they are. They feel really, really comfortable in building out these future goals. On the right-hand side, this is something we're doing for summer. We are having a virtual summer workshop series. So this is designed specifically for our adult school students in mind that we have, but also their community, their family members, anybody else they know that might want to go into either an adult school or into the college. So we're going to be offering topics like let Chaffey College introduce themselves. So many choices, so little time. How do you figure out what classes to take or what an academic career community is? We have one, how to pay or not for college. What are your options, either through our program or other ways? If you already possess your GED or your high school diploma, how else can we help you? This is where we can share information about CalWorks. This is where we can share information about EOPS. Then we have a day dedicated to resources. How do I access our social justice center, our food pantry? What if I want to do a transfer agreement to go to a university? What if I want to join the honors programs? So we make sure that all of this is moving forward for that adult school student, in addition to an application workshop, which will be available in English and Spanish. a day dedicated of how do I navigate Chafee College online. So if these students are taking online courses or they just want to go into our website and see what we have, we're going to guide them through that. And the last day is a counselor chat. You have free access to a counselor, or we can help you make an appointment if that chat needs to be in private. Next slide. And this here is a poster that now that our adult schools are back in person, this is a poster that's being created, actually has been created, that will be going out to our adult schools so they can start posting around in their classrooms, in any area where students and staff might convene, so they have an idea of what's available. And if you see, we've highlighted on here that US citizenship is not required. So again, we're really using this SB 554 as an equity piece and making sure that all of our adult school students can be served. Next slide, Matt. So as I said, I'm going to jump back to my very first slide, and I said about this is a collaboration. So are the support services. So on our adult school side, we have our adult school career techs, counselors, even front office staff who are heavily engaged with us, helping choose or at least providing information about what's available as far as the Chafee College classes, counseling support, educational planning as far as how do these students use these courses and how are they counted towards not only their career goals, but their high school diploma goals, career planning. And again, I'm going to jump back to that linking to resources. On the Chafee College side, we offer our counseling support, again, long-term ed planning, career and major exploration. We provide access to technology. So our students have access to free computers and hotspots if necessary. Tutoring support, we can arrange online tutoring based on a class. If we have a cohorted adult school class, we can bring in tutoring once, twice a week, depending on those students' needs. So again, this is just an idea of how we build this partnership together. I think one of the greatest compliments we had one time on a presentation is they asked, is this an adult school program or a Chafee College program? And it just, again, it showed the dedication of both the adult school and the college on how we work together with the common goal of moving our collective students into post-secondary. With that, next slide, I'm going to hand it off to Todd Haig and Nora Harani Faraj from Chafee Adult School.
Todd, you need to unmute yourself.
I failed the very first test in webinar presentation. Nora knows that. So anyway, thank you, Laura. Thank you, Matt. And I'll be introducing Nora in just a couple moments as well. But I just wanted to mention we are part of our consortium, the West End Corridor Consortium. Chafee College is our community college partner, and we work very closely with Fontana, Chino, and Upland as well. And these programs in different forms exist in those programs as well. So I really wanted to thank Matt and Laura. Matt, first of all, was so instrumental in Neil Kelly being supportive of the legislation. It was kind of born out of Matt getting it and understanding it, and Chafee College's willingness to kind of take that torch and run with it, resulting in this legislation. I also want to thank them both for being so understanding. I mean, it took a lot of time and energy for them to hear our adult school message as far as what we are about, what our students are about, and what our students come to our programs with. And it's the barriers piece in many cases. So their willingness to listen and adjust and take a look at how what we deal with relates to the college and what they have to deal with, their parameters, their barriers with regards to enrollment and paperwork and policy was really a big step that has got us to where we are now. So I really want to commend them for that, because that communication piece and that openness and understanding was huge, Nothing would move forward without that. Just a quick little story for me. I'm a little embarrassed to say, when I first got into adult ed and just learning the ropes, what we were about, what I thought we were about, I didn't necessarily understand the transition piece that was just starting to be discussed maybe 8 years ago. And I really felt, that's not what they're coming here for. Our adults are coming here for language, and they're coming here for those basic academic pieces of high school diploma and GED, and they're moving on to work and family. And I kind of dismissed the transition piece. And again, I'm a little embarrassed to say that back early in my career. Where the light bulb really went on for me was one year we changed our approach to graduation. We were graduating at the end of the year, and we changed how we distributed the diplomas at the end. And we did it in a little more organized fashion, with allowing students in a very orderly fashion with their name, get their diploma. And I started hearing, I was kind of managing the line as we were letting a limited number of students in to pick up their diploma at the end of the ceremony. And I was hearing conversations about Chaffey College. What are you doing next year? When do classes start? And I heard it from student after student that was coming into the auditorium to get their diploma. And I realized I was clueless in that respect, and that we weren't doing enough to address and inform that next step. So for many of our students, and they were kind of finding out on their own and making that, taking those steps and gaining those avenues on their own. So that was really a big light bulb for me as to what students were actually wanting and needing assistance with. So I'll never forget that day when it comes to talking about what we're talking about today. So Matt, if you'd go to the next slide. I'm going to just start a little bit with our vision and our logo. We redesigned our school logo a couple of years ago. All the schools in our district, they wanted kind of a uniform look. And that resulting logo kind of, reminds us of what we're here for. And it's somebody helping somebody else. The rest is kind of the Inland Valley here, and the mountains and water and history of the Chaffey District. But we really felt that that's what we're here for. We're here to guide, to lead, to hold somebody's hand, for lack of a better term, at least for a while, to get them started, because of the barrier of just having the courage to come back to school. So that was the resulting logo, in the sense that we're helping one another. A little joke, my superintendent, when we were first designing it, said, "Is that somebody pushing somebody off that cliff?" Or that's like, no, we're helping somebody up to the sunrise there, is what we're doing. So the other piece is our vision. When we became WASC accredited, entered the WASC world a few years ago for our initial accreditation, revisiting our mission and vision, and highlighting that part on the slide, after completing an informed and goal-driven program to successfully transition to continuing education, additional training, or advancement in the workforce. And probably the key word being successful. It wasn't just that we knew it existed. We really need to put measures in place that would make that happen for our students, and not just saying, go see a counselor, or yeah, you should think about going to the college. That's not enough. That's not enough, not for our students. We've certainly welcomed them. We've guided them through the process, and we can't just hand it off without that continued guidance to the college. So that's reminiscent of what we're trying to do, and getting it down on paper we thought was extremely important. The next slide, Matt. What constitutes success? I think the biggest one is removing barriers. Laura talked about a number of them, and I'll jump back to one of them so I don't forget to mention it. The late start. That was a huge piece of understanding what adults are dealing with, whether it's starting a new school year. She mentioned children, childcare, all these other pieces of getting established and put in place. And then to say, well, let's get you enrolled in the college now, can be a little overwhelming. So starting a little bit later, letting them get established, letting them learn about what we're about before we take that next step. And the other barriers when it comes to adult education, all the paperwork, all the forms that Laura and Matt talked about, the processes that the colleges have to deal with, and how they were able to reduce some of those barriers, and us at the adult school really walking people through the process, developing modeling tools and examples and videos, and really sitting with them and walking them through the process are all so extremely important. You can't just say, go see the counselor. It ain't gonna happen. You have to put systems in place that assist them, inform and assist them to complete those tasks with a little bit of guidance and with a little supervision. And so the reducing of barriers, the providing easy access to our curriculum, getting enrolled, getting signed up, what the purpose is, teachers understanding the students that are sitting in front of them. And sometimes that's a college teacher. If they don't understand a little bit of adult ed pedagogy and strategy with those students come to us, it's probably not going to be a successful class. And again, Laura and Matt hearing that from us, having some tough conversations, even with some of their teachers at times. I really appreciate them doing that because it was so critical. So again, I'm kind of really wanting to make sure I acknowledge that effort on the college's part, because they really had to make some adjustments. And our counselors for their guidance and support. And what this has lent to is a process, not just go see somebody, but we have established processes that our frontline intake people understand, that our counselors obviously understand, but now our teachers understand. So our teachers understanding that there is a transition plan or a transition process, a way to communicate, and a process to be acknowledged that we're moving forward with something, and being able to convey that, even in very simple general terms, to their students, again, goes well beyond just go see the counselor. And this has parlayed itself into our IELCE program. Our English learner program now has a component with a college teacher and college curriculum as a transition piece. So that's huge, and that's great credit to Nora, who I'm going to introduce, because she understands it. She has that ESL perspective, and she understands the barriers piece, and she's technology savvy, and she's really been able to take huge steps in walking our students through the process of feeling confident and feeling comfortable. So Matt, if you want to go to the next slide. This is where it started. It started with realizing we had students that were interested in taking the next step, how we would reach out to them to establish an initial class using an established class at the college, the guidance class. There's several layers of that, or several courses, and deciding on one that would be able to lower the inhibitions of our students and walk them through the process of what the first year of college, or taking a college class, really entails. And it provided dual credit, elective credit at the adult school and credit at the college toward those students being enrolled. And so that was the first step. And I'll remember the first night, it's kind of like this Zoom meeting. You're kind of working with Matt and Laura, and Nora says, hey, we're presenting something, and what's your piece, what's my piece, and how much time do you have to sit together before you actually do it, so you know you're on the same page. Well, we had that class starting one night, and we were waiting for students to arrive, and quite a few students had arrived. So I go, wow, what a turnout. And so I went in there to kind of do a welcome, and I started talking about adult ed, and being so proud of them that they were there and taking part and having the courage to take a college class, and looking around, and they're looking at me like I'm from another planet. Well, the majority of the students that had been there at that point for me to start talking weren't adult students. They were students from the community. And me being who I am, probably didn't pay attention when Matt shared that with me, that hey, as a college back in several years ago, we have to open up these courses to students in the community. So you have quote unquote college students here with your adult students. And so we had a chuckle about that. And that was just, first steps to beginning the process with the class. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nora to talk about those initial steps and kind of take you through to where we are now.
Okay, it's the one before it, Matt. I wanted to just really quickly, if you could go back before. Yes, so when dual enrollment started to grow in our high school district, our adult school jumped on the opportunity. We wanted to provide this amazing option for students who were taking their last classes towards graduation. So in spring of 2018, our former counselors reached out to adult students enrolled in high school diploma and GED classes. Specifically, they called high school diploma and GED students who were close to graduation. I then created an interest list and gave them an overview of what the guidance to class incorporated. And then the counselors populated the list. And we actually had 45 interested students for the spring semester that would start in September and end in December. Okay, Matt, next one, please. So some of the reasons why students were interested in this new course offering were more than just these, but the 5 common themes, they stemmed from a dual enrollment option that would provide both high school and college credit without having to worry about navigating a new campus because we were offering it here at 5th Street. They didn't need to learn where to park or which class to go to. They were already familiar with our campus as their counselors were here at this location. The class was also offered in the evening on Mondays once a week, which was easy for students who had evening responsibilities and could schedule one day to move around. The biggest incentive we pushed was that we would help them apply, and it would be an easy process since we would provide that step-by-step process that we discussed earlier that our students need. Finally, they would be connected with a college, they would transition and continue to move on in their education. Everything was just hunky-dory. Matt, next one, please. I'd like to refer to our snags in launching this program as stumbling blocks or obstacles that led to only 9 students being registered from the 45 who were interested. So what was the biggest obstacle? And that was the application process that was pre SB 554, which Laura had indicated. Next one, please. So recalling what we had mentioned about our students needing how-to and step-by-step instructions, the application was nowhere near that support. In fact, I myself had difficulties navigating the questions. They were wordy, hard to interpret, asked too many questions of students, especially the residency or citizenship status. Not only that, but if students indicated the wrong semester start date, they were ineligible and they couldn't apply. There was also a hard line for application deadlines, which didn't work with our students' schedules. Thus, there was a huge disconnect between us and the college, as the college was trying to meet their deadlines and protocols while we were trying to maintain the provisions of our adult school vision. The results, as you can see, we had 9 students registered, 3 because they indicated the incorrect semester date were ineligible. 1 student had an inactive Chaffey College ID and was ineligible. 14 incorrectly completed the form and missed the deadline, were ineligible, and 27 just didn't want the hassle of dealing with this whole registration process. These students also had their reservations about payment and financial aid. So the barrier to their continuing education was the finances that was associated with it. Next slide, please, Matt. The second obstacle came from students having to enroll themselves in a course. Again, the assumption was that students knew how to navigate the digital platform of enrolling themselves in a class without any step-by-step tutorials or instruction. That on its own frustrated our students, and if they were not registered, they had to use add or drop slips. This was not easy as students didn't know what that even meant. I was in there many nights in the class guiding them as the teacher also worked with them how to complete these slips. Just getting them started took 2 to 3 Mondays, which was taken from our instructional time. And again, the concept of fees associated with the course loomed over these students' heads. Next slide, please. So after many conversations with the Adult Education Pathways team, we were committed to providing easier access to college courses as we and our students know the benefits of having dual enrollment with the barrier of financial stress being alleviated. That meant with the passing of SB 554, we were committed to fostering a stronger relationship and partnership with Chaffey College. Okay, next one. So the first step was creating that tutorial or step-by-step guide for students to follow. This video was created by the Adult Education Pathways team and was uploaded to our promotion sites. And I'll share that link later on in the chat so you can actually see it. It actually has a transcript, so students who are not auditory processors could actually read the transcript and go back and follow along. Only students that were provided the link to the application could enroll. And that made the application then only for students who we had identified, and that was where the counselors would be involved. This would ensure that our students who had earned credits with us were part of a career pathway program we offered would also be offered this dual enrollment opportunity. This would help our limited English proficiency or English as a second language students. So I also created a tutorial for them of how to complete the form, which because of the simplicity of the form was easy for them to follow. At the same time, our counselors met with students and through whether it was a Zoom or a phone call, guided them through the process. The connection between our counselors and the Adult Education Pathway Counselors team has been crucial to the success of this partnership. The Adult Education Partnership team keeps our counselors in the loop with course offerings, student enrollments, and other important information pieces. Finally, our students, just like we said before, need those interventions placed that include supports and tutoring opportunities to help them be successful in their courses. Next slide, please. So the Adult Education Partnership team has been very supportive of the courses we want to offer to our students. These class offerings included career pathways that were identified for our students. Counselors have students complete a career assessment inventory tool that we use, which is Career Cruising. This program provides our students with possible careers that match their interests. Counselors then suggest certain courses offered by Chaffey College to students so that they are placed in appropriate classes that meet their needs. In this manner, we target appropriate student placement and set them up for success. Our counseling team creates a spreadsheet that tracks student enrollments in courses and monitors their progress throughout so that they remain connected to the school. This allows me, as the adult school designee, to sign off and accept the students' courses. Okay, next slide, Matt. Besides the class offerings, like we mentioned before, the classes are offered at later dates in the semester. This was key for us as our students needed time to acclimate and adjust to their high school diploma or GED class schedules. By providing these later start dates to enroll, students had the opportunity to adjust and be ready to take on another course. These courses are listed on a flyer with dates included so that students can refer to the flyer for future reference. And Laura has already shown you that flyer. The flyers are provided by the Adult Education Partnership team, and our counselors email prospective students who have been screened and guided by them. Next slide. So as we look to the future, there are 3 areas that we're going to look to improve. And that's professors, access to grades, and having the online option available to our students. So if we look at providing those professors, it's important that professors understand our limited English proficient or English as a second language student population by offering more tutoring and having clearer messaging that they can follow without having too many tutorials being offered. At the same time, when it comes time to get the transcripts of students, we have to rely on our students to go on My Chaffey dashboard, go under the link for unofficial transcript, click on that, print it, and show a copy to the counselor for monitoring purposes. And if we're able to have access to that transcript or those unofficial grades, it removes the burden off of our students, and it's easier for our registrar to update those transcripts. And then finally, we want to keep that online option for courses for our students because of the barriers of transportation, as well as if they have any childcare or work schedules. By removing these barriers to the access to the curriculum, our students can still attend virtually and be successful. Okay, next slide. So with the SB 554 and the Chaffey College partnership, Our students are equipped with the necessary skills to meet their personal, professional, and academic needs. They can become pillars of society who are productive citizens and lead the way for others to follow. And I leave you with this quote because this is basically a culmination or a summary of our students. Tell me and I will forget, teach me and I will remember. So through those tutorials, we teach them. Involve me and I will learn. So by providing them that accountability and responsibility for them to be ahead of their own goals and be a part of that process, they're able to be involved. And that's it. I'll leave it to you.
Great. Thank you, Nora. Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Laura. We have about 10 minutes left for questions, unless Veronica, if that's okay. I'm wondering if we could take some questions now. Do you think that's we're on time for that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So there are some that were in the chat from earlier. So if you'd like, I can just read them. The first one is from Karima. She asks, can non-AB 540 eligible students remain in adult school while enrolling in up to 11 credits until they graduate?
Yeah, so I'm assuming when she says until they graduate, that she's referring to until they graduate college, not until they graduate with their high school diploma. And the answer to that is technically there are no restrictions that state that they cannot do that. So, so that's a yes, but not, I'm just going to say this, it wasn't the intent of the law to allow that to be the case, but because there are no restrictions in place that would prevent students from doing that, then yes, they can currently do that.
Okay, and then Amy asks, can they do all of this online?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
So
great.
the
Oh, go ahead.
original intent was to do co-located classes on the campus. Obviously, because of COVID, we had to move into online formatting, and we have found it to be quite successful because of, as Nora had said, the accessibility and meeting the needs of the students.
Okay, and Christy Smith asks, did you have to create MOUs for these shared communications and electronic shared forms through FormStack?
We didn't because it is part of Ed Code. It doesn't require an MOU like CCAP agreements do, AB 288. If colleges are going to close classes, then they do need that contract, that MOU between the K-12 district and the college. And AB 288 CCAP agreements don't apply to SB 554, at least at current. But that stated, it's a good idea to have an MOU, and we don't have an MOU. I'm just going to be transparent. We're developing that, and it would be a good thing to have just because it helps to clarify the roles and responsibilities of the partnership. And I think we've been charging ahead, just trying to focus on students first. I think, you know, our MOU has been pushed to the back burner. So yeah, it would be a good thing to have for sure.
Okay,
If I
and
could, Veronica, if I could add one more to that. As far as the information sharing, Nora had referenced the barrier of having the students have to log in and get their unofficial transcripts. Since then, we have added a clause on that form stack that actually allows the student to give permission to us to now share those grades with the adult schools. So moving forward, when courses are completed and grades are posted, we'll be able to create a printout of those classes and provide them directly to the adult school for the registrar.
okay, and the next question is from Yulene. She asks, so is there an advantage to enrolling adult students to CCC Apply rather than non-credit CCC Apply if this is available at Chafee, Cal Promise, eligibility, non-resident / resident status, etc.?
Laura, you want to grab that one?
Absolutely. So we at Chafee are in the process of actually establishing a non-credit application. So we're doing two phases. One, we're using FormStack, which thanks to Eric Grable here from West Valley is where I stole that idea. And then we're moving into phase 2 of using the CCC Apply non-credit application. That said, Matt and I had tossed around the idea of how could we make this work for our special part-time admin students. And based on a webinar that was held yesterday for Pasadena City College and their non-credit application process, I did hear that there is a work group currently right now with CCC Tech on examining how this can be used for our special part-time admins. So the goal is to move to that for both the adult school side and the high school side. What's the beauty about that piece is that non-credit application removes the questions about residency, citizenship, and military. So it's much more user-friendly and removes, again, those barriers, as Nora had said, of people, when she had 27 students, I think she said, of this didn't want to bother with that application. So to answer your question, it's yes. And we as both the college and hopefully the state will be moving towards that.
Okay, and Autumn asked a clarifying question, which Neil answered. She asked, are the SB 554 students enrolling in credit or non-credit courses through dual enrollment? And Neil said enrolling in credit. So that has been taken care of. And Maria asks, which ERP system do you use? Given the number of courses and students that are enrolled, is there designated staff in admissions responsible for registering students?
Yeah, so we use Colleague, and our admissions and records staff have 2 staff members that are designated to enrolling all of they're basically the staff who are designated to work with all special admits, both adult ed and traditional K-12. And the batch enroll process has streamlined that work for them significantly, because one of the barriers that admissions and records often face when they are enrolling special admit students is they have to do it one by one. So student by student is manually uploaded, and usually there's about 5 screens in your student information system that need to be uploaded, and that creates quite a lot of work for admissions and records. So by batch uploading all of the students section by section, we're able to kind of cut that time and workload down for them.
Okay, I'm scrolling through, and there was one question from Sue, and I believe, Matt, you answered it regarding the non-credit app applied to special admins would cut another hole in the credit barriers. Was that in response to Sue Donaldson's question? Or
actually, I think Sue's question is, with the late start HSD classes, are there checks and balances in place to ensure HSD dual enrollment students do in fact enroll in HSE courses along with their credit courses? Good question. I'm actually going to toss that one to Nora and Todd. I don't know if you guys have an idea. You're probably working through that. Like, how do you, make sure that they also are going to enroll in your classes while they're enrolling in ours?
So for what we've done is we've removed any of the core academic classes and have left it only to be elective. So that way they're gaining their residency with us. And then again, those elective courses are geared towards a pathway, whatever career they're looking for, or what major they're interested in. And so the counselors are putting them in those appropriate classes. But like Laura said, she streamlines our form to only include those classes. And our flyer is different than another adult school because we only have certain classes that we feel based on what the students need. So that's how we're able to do that.
And just to piggyback on that real quick, Nora said it extremely well. We also just wanted to protect a little bit of our program with regard to the courses that were available, because our enrollment and our outcomes and stuff. And we'll continue to look at that, if we think there's some areas we want to expand, or we think the college could replace something that we're doing. But for now, we just wanted to make sure that we weren't opening that door too wide without creating another barrier per se either.
okay, and Annabelle, she asked, is there a benefit for students at the adult school to apply through dual enrollment if they will only be taking non-credit? And the second question is, are there other benefits through SB 554 for the student or institutions?
I don't think there's a benefit to them enrolling through SB 554 if they're non-credit, because really non-credit is already a space that's open to students. That's why it's kind of under that adult ed umbrella. But it's really that getting through the Carnegie unit barrier that's the challenge. And so this kind of allows us to carve a hole in that.
Okay, and Karima, she asks if they can have a link to the form, please.
Yep.
I will post that right now.
Okay, and then a link to they're asking, Yulene specifically is asking for a link to Laura's PowerPoint and Nora's. I think it's all part of the PowerPoint that we shared, right?
Yep, I'll
Okay.
repost that.
Okay, great. And then I think those are all of the questions that we have. Neil's, he asked a question about another webinar and people are saying yes. And yeah, those are all of the questions, it looks like.
Great, thank you guys so much. This has been fun.
All right, any other closing remarks? All right.
Go do SB 554.
Well, thank you all very much. Thank you to the presenters. Neil, did you want to say anything?
No, just great work. And, you know, this stuff doesn't happen magically. It takes a lot of hard work. And I really appreciate work that the West Ed Consortium has done. And maybe, you know, I think it's spreading. And so we have other regions trying this out, learning. And I think the same kind of thought process can apply to CCC Apply. And so it's got to start there because we're not seeing it happen at the state level. So it really has to start at the local level. So I really applaud everyone today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Neil. And thank you to all of the presenters as well as our attendees for engaging with us this afternoon. If you see in the chat, there have been a number of links that have been posted, whether it be links to this PowerPoint presentation that was used, a link to the form that was used, as well as the evaluation link and links to register for upcoming webinars that are related to our state priorities. So we have one next week that talks about well, we have data webinars next week, and then we also have one about how to market to students during the COVID-19 era. So definitely check out our registration page and register for upcoming webinars. This webinar has been recorded and we will post it on the website. We'll also send a link to the recording, the PowerPoint presentation, and then the other resources that were provided. So all who registered and or attended this webinar today, you can anticipate seeing that by Monday. So you'll have a link to everything that was posted here, as well as a link to the recording. So thank you all very much for your time and your participation. Please complete the evaluation and let the presenters know what you thought about today's webinar. And then also if there are any other professional development needs, especially as it relates to this particular topic. So thank you all very much for your time, your participation, and we hope everyone have a great weekend.
Thank you, Veronica.
Bye. You're welcome.